Hello everybody, welcome to Sozine Classes. This is Chandralekha bringing to you the news podcast, all the news you need and more. From now on, we will be releasing our news podcast on every Saturday discussing that particular week's important news. These videos will focus on few major areas and snippets relevant to the UPSC prelims and mains examination. So let's get started. The articles we will be covering in detail from the entire week in today's news podcast is the first article being the online gambling, whether they have to be regulated or completely banned in our country. This comes under General Studies Paper 3. The second article is about the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights and how they are failing in performing their duties in the right spirits. This comes under General Studies Paper 2 or Paper 3. In the third article is time to shift focus to the maritime sphere. This article is with respect to India failing in coming to a conclusions with disputes, land disputes with the neighboring countries like Pakistan and China, and how we are supposed to shift our look and try the maritime regions. This comes under General Studies Paper 3 with respect to the international relations. The fourth article we will be looking in today's news podcast is the flagging cess non-transfer and its economic impact. This is with respect to how the Consolidated Fund of India did not transfer the complete cess amounts to its public accounts and how the disputes between centre and state are going on with respect to this. And we will also look at the Nobel Prizes that have been announced till date and what Nobel Prizes are all about. The headlines of the first article in today's news podcast reads, should online gambling in India be regulated? Why is this article in news? A few weeks ago, Google pulled out the Paytm from its Play Store for violating its gambling policies. Games like Dream 11 and Paytm First Games have raised questions about whether they are proxies of the online gambling as they can involve financial transactions. But currently they are classified as games of skill. Let us first understand what games of skill mean and what games of chance means. Games of skill is the outcome of such games. The outcome of such games is determined by the player's skill. Example games like chess. And games of chance is no amount of skill can help you to succeed in these games, such as card games or Candyland or poker or any of these games. And gambling and bettings are a state subject. And all the states have their own legislation on gambling, and most states have exemption for games of skill. However, these statuses, what the statuses of gambling and betting being the state subjects, or which games come under the games of skill and what comes under the games of chance, they have been pretty old and they do not clearly define and enumerate which games fall within which category. Except for Nagaland. Nagaland is one such state which has a separate legislation which, which details about what games of skill is all about. And most of the states do not have this sort of a clarity. So it falls within the judiciary's ambit to interpret whether a particular game falls within the ambit of skill or not. This article tells us about the major problem in having the online gamblings and what are the decisions taken by Supreme Court and what decision the Supreme Court takes, how will the states act upon it, and the income that is generated by gaming industry and whether regulation or ban, which of them is a better option. So the major problem with most states is that they don't define what game of skill is. And if Supreme Court tells a game is a game of skill, then that particular game is open all over the country. And if Supreme Court decides a game as a game of chance, then the entire industry of that game shuts down. And all the state governments then have to get licenses with regulations in order to have these games running in their particular state. Like how casinos is now legal in states like Sikkim and Goa. The gaming industry in India is worth about $150 million. So this is how much revenue gaming industry generates for our country. So whether regulating gaming industries is better for our country or banning them is better. And the author of this article tells having regulation for gaming industries is way better than banning it, because there is a lot of black money that keeps rotating in the gaming industry. And legalizing and taxing it would become a huge source of revenue for the government of India. And regulate and license betting regimes, like how the United Kingdom has done, and many European countries have also done. So this way there can be a lot of revenue that can be generated for government of India. And if regulating and licensing betting regimes and their betting websites, online apps, this would also generate employment. So this was all that was discussed in this article. Let us now move on to the next article. The second article we will be looking at is about the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights. Let us understand what this commission is about. This is a statutory body, that is the NCPCR, National Commission for Protection of Child Rights, is a statutory body that was set up in the year 2007 under the Commission of Protection of Child Rights Act 2005. This commission comes under the administrative control of Ministry of Women and Child Development. And one of the objectives of this commission is to have establish state commissions that take part and look after the child's protection of child rights. So this commission ensures children from the age group of 0 to 18. So all the children from the age group of 0 to 18 come under the protection of this commission. And the major objective of this commission is to protect, promote and defend child rights, which are enshrined under the Constitution of India and also the United Nations Convention on Rights of Child. This commission emphasizes the principle of universality and inviolability of child rights and recognizes the tone of urgency in all child-related policies of the country. The Commission should also make sure that children from the vulnerable sections of the country are identified and their rights are protected. So who come under the vulnerable sections? That is, children from the background regions, communities, and also children under certain circumstances like domestic violence, any sort of abuse, or no proper parental care. So under any vulnerable circumstances, also children come under this category. The duties of this commission are that this commission provides annual reports annually to the Government of India and also recommends measures on how to work better to the Government of India. They can also undertake and promote research. They can also undertake and promote research in the field of child rights and spread child rights literacy. So these are few of the major duties of the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights. Let us now understand what the article speaks about with respect to the National Commission of Protection of Child Rights. The headlines of the article reads, "A commission misguided. The National Child Rights Body seems to be deriving its priorities from the political agenda of the day." This article speaks about the concerns on monitoring the child care institutions and social audit conduct. What do you mean by child care institutions? This institution is defined under the Juvenile Justice Act of 2015, and the institution provides protection and care to all the children from the age group of 0 to 18 years who have no parental care or abusive relationships with their parents. And the social audit conduct is this checks whether the implementation of all the rights are done properly or not. So the author of this article tells that there has been a lot of deinstitutionalization among the child care institutions because the child care institutions are sending children back to their homes after a certain period of time. And the major problem by sending their children back homes after a certain period of time is that they are failing at looking at what is the condition of their families, and there is also no proper care plan provided for the children once they move back to their houses. Child care institutions have failed in performing these two properly and sending children to their homes. And few NGOs have violated the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act norms. And all these NGOs, the the child care institutions or and the NCPCRs have conducted raids on these NGOs, which is not the duty of the NCPCR to do it. The reason the author has quoted in this article is that all the NGOs on which the NCPCR has gone on a raid are observed that these NGOs have fought against the Citizenship Amendment Act. And keeping in mind the pandemic situation, there can be child labor, there can be a lot of child labor, malnutrition among the children, or child abuse, or early child marriages. So, the author of this article tells that with this pandemic situation, it is time for the National Commission of Protection of Child Rights to look after situations like these and protect children from all these situations and put their rights. Instead, the NCPCR is busy in focusing on the NGOs that have violated the FCRA norms. So, this was all about the worries this article, the author of this article had mentioned with respect to the National Commission for the Protection of Child Rights. Let us now move on to the next article. The headlines of the third article reads, Time to shift focus to the maritime sphere. India's obsession with continental strategies has yielded unflattering results. No secure borders or deterrent stability. This article is about how India has failed in maintaining its land borders disputes with countries like Pakistan and China and other countries like the Afghanistan or the Iran. And this article tells about how it would benefit for us to move from the land to the maritime borders. So, the author of this article tells how India's continental grand strategy is facing an existential crisis, how China has begun to push its borders with India, and how Pakistan in the northwest, how Pakistan has also been heating up ceasefire violations for over an year now. So these are the images of disputed area between India and China. This is the disputed region between India and Pakistan. This is the line of actual control. And this is how the results of Afghanistan not letting India be a part in the Chabahar port construction, the highway between Chabahar and Zahedan port, how this has affected India. So, we have already discussed in detail the disputes between India, China, India, Pakistan, and India, Iran in our videos. In our earlier videos with respect to international relations. So we will leave the links in the description box below. So keeping all these in mind, let us now understand what the author has to tell about shifting our focus to the maritime sphere. The line of actual control, that is the border between India and China's, the Aksai Chin region and in Jammu and Kashmir region with China. This has been a very peaceful line for quite some time, but recently, after the changes of Jammu and Kashmir status and the removal of Article 370 from the state of Jammu and Kashmir by Government of India, has resulted in a lot of disputes at the line of actual control and the line of control with India and Pakistan too. That is, China has begun to push its boundaries with India. Quite literally so, and Beijing is neither keen on ending the ongoing border disputes, and Pakistan has also been heating up ceasefire violations and spiked since last year, with the infiltration of terrorists across the line of and keeping not just India and China, but also changes in Afghanistan, that is, withdrawal of the United States of America from Afghanistan will also affect India as United States is a great friend to India with respect to this region and all the decisions influenced United States of America and Afghanistan. If United States of America withdraws, the Talibans will return back to this country. And India has not had any good relationships with Taliban as Taliban is also funded by the Pakistans. and with the withdrawal of the forces of North Atlantic Treaty Organization from Afghanistan, the geopolitical interests of Pakistan, China, and Russia would broadly cover in this region. So this would also affect on how Afghanistan will now react to India and build its relations with India, because having support from countries like Pakistan, China, with whom India has its bad relationships, this would take a big toll. And also friction between India and Iran relations will further deepen the India's mission of Central Asia. That is, if you look at the map here, from Mumbai port, the Chabahar port in Afghanistan and the Mumbai port in India, with the maritime link over here, goods from Mumbai would directly reach to the Chabahar port, and from here would reach to many major countries like Afghanistan and all over the Europe. This was one of the major advantages for India to have trade with large number of countries in an effective and reasonable prices. But with China backing up Iran and Iran having bad relationships with India, this would affect our country's trade with not just the North, the West Asian countries, but also the entire European region. So since India has been failing in its continental strategies, it is time for India to look at different situations. So the nutcracker would be to privately talk and come in terms with the easier part of the country, that is Pakistan, because geographically and economically Pakistan is much smaller country than compared to India, whereas China is the largest country. So creating a normalcy on the line of control and activating the existing mechanisms such as the Director General of Military Operations would be one of the best initiatives our country can take and try to get things and situations under control. This article tells that it is time for India to move to the maritime strategies. That is, shifting from the exclusive focus of the continental regions to the maritime spheres. Moving from continental to maritime spheres, there would be several advantages for India. The major being the maritime sphere would be wide open to undertake many coalitions and rule settings for our country with strategic explorations, and countries that is located right at the center, and our country is located at the center of the Indo-Pacific geopolitical region, and our ocean space moves from the shores of Africa to that of the Americas. So the location in which India is located, and Indian Ocean is the only ocean that is named after a country, that is India. So having such a good location, geopolitical location with respect to maritime, it would be very advantageous for our country to have relationships with all the other countries which have maritime regions. And the second advantage would be there is a growing power of interest in the maritime spheres, especially with the arriving concept of the Indo-Pacific. And since the time of the arrival of the concept of Indo-Pacific, great powers have showed interested in the maritime sphere, and this interest has grown substantially since the coinage of this Indo-Pacific region. For instance, Germany has recently released its Indo-Pacific guidelines following the example of France, which brought out its Indo-Pacific strategy last year. And the third advantage for India would be that Beijing's bullying behavior in the South China Sea region is very particular, and that region in general has generated great deal of willingness among the European Americans region and including Australia, Japan, to push China back. So this way, all the other countries which are facing trouble with China at the South China Sea regions are also willing to push China back and start and have good relations with the other countries. So this way, it is high time for the government of India to look into the situations and focus on shifting from the continental strategies to the maritime spheres and improve discussions of Quad meetings among India, Japan, in the United States of America and Australia. So this was all about this article on the maritime sphere. Let us now look at the next article. The next article is about the Financial Audit Report of the Government of India that was released by the Controller and Auditor General for the year 2018 and 19. So, with the release of this report, there have been concerns that were raised and significant issues of lack of transparency in the government. So, the headlines of this article reads, Flagging cess non-transfer, its economic impact. The issues discussed in this article is that the CAG report stated that the Government of India did not transfer rupees 6,466 crores rupees of compensation revenue in the year 2017 and 18 and rupees 47,272 crores of the compensation revenue for the year 2018 and 19. CAG has also pointed out that the collections were made for about 35 cesses, which amounted to the total of 2.75 lakh crores, from which only 1.64 lakh crores was given to the specific reserve funds and boards, and the remaining 1.11 lakh crore still remains with the Contingency Fund of India. So this was all what the article has discussed about. So the reason we have picked this article is to explain what cess means, what cess is all about, and what do you mean by surcharge, and the difference between cess and surcharge. So let us look at what cess means. Cess is nothing but tax on tax. That is, tax is charged on your income. So on a certain amount of income range, the government of India charges tax from you. And cess is charged on this tax. Say for example, a person is earning around 1 lakh. So for example, a person is earning about 1 lakh and the income tax he pays is about 5% of this. That is 5,000 rupees. And on this 5,000 rupees of income tax, there will be cess that will be calculated, that will be charged, which is about, depends on different reasons. That is the health and education cess is 4%, has recently been increased to 4%. So 4% of the money from this 5,000 will be charged for health and education cess. So cess is nothing but the money that is charged on the amount of income tax you pay to the government of India. Usually the income tax that is collected from us goes to the Consolidated Fund of India, and that can be used for any purpose by the central government. But whereas the cess also initially goes to the Consolidated Fund of India, but it has to be used only for specific purposes. That is, after from the Consolidated Fund of India, later this money, that is the cess amount, goes to specific specific public accounts for which the cess is to be utilized. The cess was collected. So this way, the cess is used for specific purposes only, and all the money that goes to the cess for specific purposes are non-lapsable, and cess money need not be shared by the central government to state governments. So the reason we have cess is that it is easy to introduce in the parliament. So just as an executive order, like example, the health and education cess was increased from 3% to 4% recently. So there need not be, like how you announce a tax or a bill in the parliament, there need not be such tedious long processes to introduce a cess. It's a very easy process by the executive, directly done. So let us again look at what cess is. It is a tax levied on tax. So that is the reason it is called tax on tax. And this is the same rate for everyone, and the amount used is for specific purposes only, and states do not get any part of this. So all the cess amount is used completely by the central government itself. What do you mean by surcharge? Surcharge is nothing but additional tax that is imposed on income above certain levels, say 50 lakhs. On incomes more than 50 lakhs, there will be certain additional surcharge these individuals have to pay. So if you look at that strategy, the more annual income, the more is your surcharge. And these surcharge money will be only used by the central government. So with respect to this article, there has been a question that is asked in our daily news diary. So a detailed explanation of the issue and way forward is explained in the format of question and answer. The question is, what are the issues and demands of the states with respect to the center-state friction over pending compensation payments under the goods and services taxes? So to have a detailed explanation about this, you can visit to our website www.sozinclasses.com, and over here under the news diaries corner you will find the explanation for this question. So this is all about the issues related to the cess and the amount that is not being transferred to the respective specific public accounts for which the cess has to be utilized, and also the GST compensation cess that has not been given the complete amount that is allocated. So not just GST compensation, there are other cess like the Central Road and Infrastructure Funds, the Oil Industry Development Boards also did not receive their complete funds. So this was the major reasons they have raised concerns, and they are doubting on the transparency of the central government in respect to distribution of these cess money from the Consolidated Fund of India to the specific public accounts. The Nobel Prize Award winners for the year 2020 have been announced recently. Till date, the announcements in the fields of physiology or medicine, physics, chemistry, and literature have been announced. And these are the names of the award winners. The reason I have given only the names is because in our daily news diary, we have already covered each of this section with the specific work for the reason they have been. Let us understand how Nobel Prize awards have come. A Swedish inventor named Alfred Nobel has invented dynamite, which was a breakthrough in the field of chemistry. But most of his inventions were explosive, and this created a fear in him on how people would remember him after his death. That was the reason he has put all his money in a trust, which was later used to create the Nobel Prize Awards. So coming to what Nobel Prize Awards are, these are an annual international awards given for the landmark achievements or discoveries in various fields like literature, medicine, physics, chemistry, peace, and economics. Separate committees have been set up and they award each prize but in these fields, but the process of selection is similar. That is, around 3,000 nominees apply for each of these fields, and only 300 are picked by these committees, and they prepare the reports of their works and their achievements in their specific field and send to the awarding institutions. These institutions then pick the winners for that particular year's Nobel Prizes, and for each category a maximum of 3 people can be picked, but except for the Peace Prize, because Peace Prize is also awarded to institutions. And the rest of these awards are given only to the people. All the winners who win the Nobel Prize get a gold medal, a diploma, and a cash prize. So this is the story how Nobel Prize has come into the picture, and this is considered to be one of the prestigious awards in the field, generally in the field of academics. Let us now look at few other important news of the week. The first one being the gang rape in Hathras district of Uttar Pradesh, where a 19-year-old girl was gang raped by 4 men at her workplace in the field. The body of this female was also cremated by the police officials and not by the family members, and this was done without the consent of the family members. This brings us to the question of women's safety in the world's largest democratic country like India. The United Nations Summit on Biodiversity was held on September 30th in the midst of all the global crisis. In this summit, the member nations of the biological diversity took a note on the link between the biological loss and the spread of animal pathogens, calling for an end to the destructive industrial and commercial practices. India has successfully inaugurated the world's largest tunnel called the Atal Tunnel, constructed in Himachal Pradesh. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says that the 9.02 long kilometer tunnel provides new strength for our country's border infrastructure. This tunnel connects Manali to the Lahaul Spiti Valley. One another important article in the Hindu News editorial is about ways to improve and streamline the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code in order to strengthen and bring confidence in the foreign and local investors. The headlines of this article reads, Transforming Business and the Insolvency System. Annual Invest India conference has taken place in Canada, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi underscores the reforms that help India to fight the adversity of COVID pandemic. Cabinet Committee on Economic Reforms clears the natural gas marketing reforms and approves for the standardized bidding process. This is a wrap on your news podcast. For more news of the week in mains practice questions format and also prelims questions, please visit to our news section, News Diary, in our website www.sozineclasses.com. We will also leave the link in the description box below. Thank you and have a great day.